Welcome to Prism of Torah with Rebbe Saf Aaron Prisman, engaging Divrei Torah, packed with stories and practical insights. Find us wherever you get your podcasts or at prismoftorah.org.
Shalom, we are in Parshas Vayera, which we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Moshe Rabbeinu to be the shaliach, the messenger, to take Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. And the question I want to share with you is, why is it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu out of everyone chose Moshe Rabbeinu? What was so special, or what character trait did Moshe possess that it's through that character trait that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to have him be the chosen person to lead Bnei Yisrael out of Mitzrayim? Perhaps the answer to that lies in the Ramban's explanation in the pasuk we had in last week's Sedra. It says over there in Parshas Shmois, it says Vayigdal Hayered, and the child grew up, referring to Moshe. And in the pasuk right after it says Vayi Bayamim Ahem, and it was in those days Vayigdal Moshe, and Moshe grew up, which we just said a second ago he grew up. So why are we saying it again? And then the next thing in the sentence is Vayetze Lechav. He went out to his fellow brothers and he saw that they were in pain, etc., etc., and he felt for them. So the question is, why did it say Vayigdal twice? Why does it say that Moshe grew twice? So you can see what Rashi says, but the Ramban says that the first time is explaining how he reached physical maturity. He grew physically. The second phrase, though, refers to Moshe's growth intellectually and spiritually, and that led him to become a man of understanding. That's what the Ramban says. It seems from here that we see the Ramban is telling us what defines a person to be big, to be a gadol. A gadol, what is it? Is the fact that he feels for others. That goes hand in hand with the next sentence that we said. The next words is that the second he reached gadol, that he was big, it says, and Rashi explains, Vayar b'siv loisam, Rashi over there explains that he applied his eyes and heart to suffer with them. He identified with them. That is the definition of being someone big, someone gadol. The ability to be concerned with others. We know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is referred to as gadol, as we say in our davening, a gadol agibor v'anoira. And the Gaon Mevilna explains that when we say gadol, it's keneged the hemshech of the pasuk, what we say when we daven, when we say goimel chasadim toivim, that is an explanation of what gadol is, meaning doing good for others because you feel you're a part of them. The Gaon Mevilna explains that. And we know that we have a responsibility to try to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu as best as we can. Just like it says, Mahurachum, Afatachum, just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is merciful, so too we should do our best to resemble that and to emulate Hashem. So too, it is our responsibility to also emulate Hashem in this attribute of being a gadol, meaning that we want to extend ourselves to care for others. And perhaps this is what Moshe Rabbeinu possessed, as the pasuk is telling us with the explanation of the Ramban, that when a person possesses greatness, it means he feels and cares for others. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu had. Reb Shimon Shkop, in his Akdama, in his preface to Shari Yosher, says a fascinating question. He raises a question that on the one hand, it says, V'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you should love your fellow Jew like yourself. On the other hand, he says, how's that possible? We also know that it says chayet hakoidmim, which means one should care about his life first before anyone else's life. And also, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us with a natural concern for ourselves more than anyone else. So how do those two stem together? How does it all go together? And he says an unbelievable answer. He says, it all lies in the definition of oneself. How do we define who are we? What defines ourselves? He says that the lowest of the low is a person that only cares about his physical needs, meaning even in himself, he only feels it's his nefesh behemit, which means his inclination to do something just like an animal. All he cares about is his physical pleasures. Then you have a higher level person that his self is extended to his spiritual self, to his neshama, to also care to do spiritual things. And it continues to go on, because a person cares about, he feels like his wife is part of him, as we know Chazal say, and it even has halachic ramifications, that ishto kegufo dami, that even a wife's body is as if it's part of himself. And there are those that extend themselves to be also a part of the whole family is himself, and some, the whole community is himself, and some, all of the Jewish people, all of the Klal Yisroel, they feel is an extension of themselves. Just like we saw in Gdolei Adol, Gdolei Torah, people that are very high level in their learning, that changed them and made them feel that all of Am Yisrael is part of them, just like we know that Rav Steinman, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, the Stipler, Moshe Feinstein, and so on, they all really cared about all of Am Yisrael. Everyone could come up to where they lived to ask them questions, to get brachas. We see that all the time. With this idea, and this is also taken from Reb Shimon Shkop over there, we can understand better the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, Im ein ani li mili. If I am not for myself, who is going to be for me? That half of the statement is very understood. Obviously, I have to care for myself. For two reasons. A, if I don't care for myself, how can I assume someone else will take care of me? But more than that, how can I extend myself to others if I don't even care for myself? Just like we always say, a person has to have Jewish pride. He has to have self-worth. He has to have self-confidence. Of course, he shouldn't go overboard and reach the point where it's gaiva, but on the other hand, of course he needs that, because he can't extend himself to others if he doesn't realize what he's worth. And the second half of the statement is Vim ani latzmi. If the only thing I am is only for myself, nani, what is that worth? I have to be extending myself. That's the whole point, to extend myself to others. That is what gadol means. The $1 million question is, how can we reach this stage of extra sensitivity that we extend ourselves to others? The answer to that is only through Torah. Only through learning Torah, a person can reach these extreme level of sensitivity for others that you feel as if others are part of yourself. It's true that there's a first level of working on who you are, oneself, that a person can do on his own. Just like every characteristic trait that a person has, any midah, there's the first level a person has to reach, and without that, he's not even ready to learn the Torah. Because it says, as it says in Pirkei Avos also, Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah, meaning you need that prerequisite level in order to be able to learn the Torah. But once you reach that level, the only thing that's really going to let you reach extreme levels of sensitivity to others, or sensitivity levels in any midah, in any character trait, that's a positive one, that is only through the vehicle of learning Torah. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu programmed us and created the world through the Torah. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the Torah, Chazal tell us, looked at the Torah, and through that, He created us and the world. Besides the fact that learning Torah is also the biggest chesed one can do. Why? Because we know the world only continues to exist through the learning of Torah. If Chas v'Shalom no one would learn Torah at any point in time, the whole world would collapse. There's many chazals on that, and therefore when a person learns Torah, he's doing a chesed, an act of chesed for everyone. I'm not even discussing about all the blessings that come to this world when people are learning. I remember it was a beautiful thing in the last war that was over here. I remember that someone took it upon themselves to pair every soldier that was fighting with a person that was learning back at home. I remember in our base midrash we had it, and it was an unbelievable thing, because the koyach of Torah can protect one. And that's exactly what this person had in mind when he was trying to pair off a soldier to a person learning in the base of midrash. It's also very fascinating to note that all the leaders of the Jewish people in the Tanakh, they were shepherds. I mean, to the best of my knowledge. But Moshe was, and David HaMelech was. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu even has a whole mashal, a story about him, that he was a shepherd, and one sheep ran to get water, and he realized it was his fault. He didn't stop for the water, so he felt so bad, because, again, he already extended himself to everyone, even sheep, that he felt he needed to carry that sheep back to where all the flock was, because he felt so bad. He felt sensitive to her needs. I also want to share with you another idea that I think, to the best of my knowledge, the adjective of tzaddik is only referred to two people in the Tanakh. One is Noach, as it says in the Chumash. The other one is Yosef. In the Navi, it references him as a tzaddik. And the tzad shaveh, the common denominator between both of them, is that they're the only ones that Kivyachol the world continued to exist through them. Yosef, by giving food, the whole world was in famine, and Noach, as we know, the ark and the food that he gave to everyone in the ark allowed them to continue to live. Chazal teach us, and I think we can see this ourselves, that when a baby is born, he's born with a clenched fist. But after 120 years, he one of the halachas of burial is to ensure that his hand is open. I think even the Gemara says that automatically when a person dies, his hand becomes open, and that's to show that at the beginning, a person thinks everything is his. And then he realizes nothing is kept. Everything stays behind. Only the Torah and mitzvahs continues with a person to the eternal world. But perhaps there's another idea underlying this, that when a person's born, he has a clenched fist, because he thinks himself is only him, no one else. But at the end, after 120 years, we have to feel, or we have to work towards that we're extending our hand to others, because we're all connected, and the whole idea of godless, of being big, is how much we are able to view ourselves as not just ourselves, but to extend ourselves to others. So, to summarize, the idea that we're trying to portray over here is that gedulah, godless, to become big, means to extend oneself. It's not to have sympathy, but rather to have empathy and total identification with others. There's a couple of stories I want to share with you about this. And again, we said that people that were gedolim in learning were able to reach these extraordinary level of sensitivity. Rav Wolve used to not be able to eat a piece of cake when there was, until Mivtza Tebi happened, because of the plane that was hijacked. He couldn't take it that there were people from Israel stuck over there and taken captives, and he couldn't enjoy his piece of cake. Why? Because he's so identified with them, because he felt it was part of him. Another cases, I remember I drove my Rosh Yeshiva around, the Rav Buk, and suddenly he tells me, stop right here, I have to get out. He gets out, and he couldn't take it that a cat caught a bird in its mouth, and he fought with the cat to let the bird fly away. Why? Because he couldn't take it. It was bothering him, because he had that extra sensitivity level. And the same is true with Rav Palm. It's brought down the following story about Rav Palm. That one person, a mother came up to him and cried that her daughter is giving birth and there's many complications. Please, can you give a bracha that everything will be okay? So he took down the name. He asked her which hospital she's in and everything, and he started and he gave the bracha. The next morning, he calls up this mother and says, Mazel Tov, I heard you had a baby girl. So the mother asked, how did you know? So he says, what do you mean, how did I know? I davened all night long for her. I wanted to make sure everything would go well. I called the hospital to check out how everything's going, and I heard everything, the baby's healthy, and they had a baby girl. Meaning, that's who these people are. These people really care about everyone. And Am Yisrael and Yiratzon will be able to take this message and bring it over to our kids and ourselves, to work on ourselves, to extend ourselves to others, because that is where real greatness lies. Good job.
This concludes another episode of the Prism of Torah. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. If you did, please subscribe to the podcast and give a 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or our own website, prismoftorah.com, where we have a full archive of all our past episodes. We would like to thank Yona Vefa for the recording equipment and Eli Podcast Productions for handling all our post-podcast productions. Join us next week for another enlightening conversation on the Prism of Torah.